give the chairperson budget the mic.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to move that the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill, that is National Assembly Bill number 38 of 2024, be now read a second time. Honorable Speaker, I wish to take just a brief moment to brief members that, as we are all aware, we had made a budget that was to be implemented in the year 2024-2025. The budget is two-sided, the revenue side and the expenditure side. When we came before this House, Honorable Speaker, we were able to debate and actually pass the expenditure side of the budget and also pass the appropriations bill, which became an act. Consequently, Honorable Speaker, afterwards, as we know, the revenue side had challenges, and the revenue-raising measures that were there, Honorable Speaker, were not able to be realized because of the challenges that we all now understand and know. And in that respect, then, the government had to, and us here in Parliament, had to come up with measures to have a budget that balances the expenditure and the revenue side of the budget. And Honorable Speaker, therefore, this has necessitated cuts across all government agencies, Honorable Speaker, and also across the two levels of government, so that we are able to balance the anticipated expenditure together with the expected revenue, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the national government side, we have come before this House and already have done the appropriations, the supplementary budget, which was signed yesterday by the President. It is now an act. Honorable Speaker, what we were seeking to do is to balance the budget through two ways. One, borrowing a little more, which we borrowed 176 billion more than we wanted to borrow as a country. But we have also consequently added up cutting around 145 billion of anticipated expenditure, especially that amount is only in the national government, which incorporates the judiciary and parliament. Honorable Speaker, then, because of the situation we find ourselves as a country, we have had to do something unprecedented. And actually, all that we have done is unprecedented. In the budget-making process in Kenya, there is no budget that was amended through a supplementary budget barely a month after the signing of the appropriations bill. This is the first time. The other unprecedented thing, Honorable Speaker, is that it is the first time again that we are actually amending the the Division of Revenue Bill, Honorable Speaker, which is actually divides money vertically between the national and the county governments. Honorable Speaker, in a nutshell, is that this House had already passed the equitable share to our counties to a figure that has never been there before of 400.1 billion shillings. Upon revision of the expenditure side necessitated by the collapse of the revenue-raising measures, the amendment before us, Honorable Speaker, is then to also have a haircut in the equitable share from the proposed 400.1 billion to 380 billion, Honorable Speaker, so that all the levels of government apportion the loss of anticipated revenue across the board, Honorable Speaker, and therefore the nutshell of this amendment of the Division of Revenue is actually to decrease the amount from 400.1 billion to 380 billion in line with the realities we find ourselves as a country. Honorable Speaker, from the two levels of government, which is national government and the county governments, even within the national government, everyone has had to take a haircut. And some have actually had their heads chopped, Honorable Speaker, because of the drastic cuts that we had to then effect. Across the arms of government, the executive is losing money, Parliament is losing 3.7 billion Kenya shillings, Judiciary is losing around 2 billion Kenya shillings. Everyone, every arm of government, Honorable Speaker, and all levels of government has to come in and go through the austerity measures, Honorable Speaker, the ones we are effecting today, and especially in the counties through the division of revenue. Honorable Speaker, I also want to brief this House that the Constitution permits a floor of 15% when it comes to dividing the revenues through the equitable share. Honorable Speaker, constitutionally, we are already past that amount in the current proposal, because at 380 billion shillings, we are already at 24.4%, and therefore it is way beyond the constitutional requirement. Honorable Speaker, something else we have had to do is that in our report, we have recommended, even in the bill, Honorable Speaker, something else that we have not done in this House before. And our proposal as the Budget Committee is this. In anticipation in future what we've been seeing, Honorable Speaker, if you look at the current supplementary appropriations bill, which is basically the main budget, we have to budget for 68 billion shillings of carryovers. Carryovers meaning we have cherry-picked a few items which, even if the year has lapsed, those budget lines cannot lapse. They total to 68 billion. However, the entire amount of carryovers, monies that we are not funded by the Treasury, by close of last financial year, was 221 billion Kenya shillings. It therefore means our revenue-raising measures as of last year, through debt and revenue, ordinary and A&A, was short of 220 billion Kenya shillings, Honorable Speaker. Now, this is the debate I invite this House, Honorable Speaker. In light of that, we have to budget 13 billion Kenya shillings to CDF, carryovers. We have to budget for over 30 billion Kenya shillings to our counties as carryovers. We have to budget for 23 billion shillings, Honorable Speaker, 21 to 23 billion, as carryovers for pensions. What am I trying to say, Honorable Speaker? The way the government should work is that by the fall of 30th June, Kenya operating under what we call T+2. After 2 days, there should be no disbursement from the National Treasury for the previous year's budget. Basically, that's what it means. But then, because some of these things like CDF, we have already gone for public participation. These monies, I mean, you have gone through the long hole. There is no way then we could have, or CDF could have been denied this amount. Monies for pensions, whether the year lapses or not, is not a problem of the pensioner. They had to be paid. County governments alike. They have already done their budgets approved by the county government. They need the money. So we have 68 billion we are funding now, money for last financial year. And as we know, because governments are run through time, government is not in the business of wealth. Government is always in the business of cash flow and revenue. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, since you cannot run government through receivables, you cannot run government through assets, you only run through money that is coming in and out. We have done one thing. In anticipation, we have an year where the revenue-raising measures do not measure up. Honorable Speaker, what do we do as a country? We anticipate to raise 2.6 trillion Kenya shillings in ordinary revenue this year. What happens when we go to 30th of June next year and we have only raised 2 trillion? What would happen? That's the debate I'm inviting this House. What would happen, just to repeat, if we anticipate to raise 2.6 trillion, what would happen by 30th June that KRA has only raised 2 trillion? What would happen? Honorable Speaker, we have suggested in our report and in this bill, when there is a shortfall in revenue raising, the two levels of government must carry that burden proportionately. Because then what happens? Even county governments themselves, Honorable Speaker, they also usually project their revenue. But many times, they have a shortfall. Then, is it a new thing? No. In government of Kenya, ever since for the last many years, we have had shortfalls in revenue. In this year, I'm repeating, we have a shortfall of 200 billion. The national government is carrying this burden alone. And national government, I mean executive, judiciary, and parliament. Honorable Speaker, we just have to bite the bullet. And I'm anticipating a period where we have a drastic fall in anticipated revenue. Then we make the national government carry the burden. They may actually end up even not being able to pay salaries. Why? Our development expenditure is of this budget that we passed the other day is 640 billion. What if we had a shortfall of 640 billion as a country? Then it means we are obligated to fund all the other levels of government, but the national government will have a deficit in funding even PE, personal emoluments. That is what we must think of as a house. When there is a shortfall, the two levels of government, at the same percentage, they carry the same burden. But when there is a surplus, if there is a surplus, that could also be incorporated, that also they be considered. Though we have not had a surplus in many years, Honorable Speaker. So that is the main highlight in this proposal, Honorable Speaker. I know there are provisions of the Constitution. We have to sit down with our legal experts, but we decided this debate must start. Because if it doesn't start, Honorable Speaker, then we are living a lie as a country. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I also want to buttress the point that we have also allocated over 40 billion Kenya shillings in conditional grants to our counties. We have done everything in support of devolution. As the budget committee, we have, beyond these resources, as I've said before, we have also appropriated 44 billion in conditional grants. Honorable Speaker, we have also appropriated 8 billion shillings managed for equalization fund, which is majorly supported and managed by our governors. They are doing a fantastic job. This does not want to show that there is anything against anyone. It is basically where we are as a country. That Parliament, for the first time, I saw something I have never seen. Members of Parliament rising and saying, cut our CDF, which we cut by 10 billion shillings, Honorable Speaker. Members of Parliament standing and saying, for the sake of our country, cut our travel budget, cut any other non-core expenditure, which we ended up cutting 3.7 billion shillings. We are just requesting the same now percolates across all levels of government so that we live within our means as Kenyans, very unequivocally and directly and eloquently suggested that we must do. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I wish to request the very able Vice Chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. I beg to, with those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to move and request the very able Vice Chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, the elegant Mary Amase, to second this motion.
Very well, Mary Amase.
Thank you.